Kundalini awakening is the energetic component to the entire spiritual awakening process. And it is interesting because some people barely feel it or notice it happening, and other people have a really hard time with it. So it is quite different from person to person. But in this video, I'll share my experience of Kundalini. The first time when Kundalini started happening was just prior to when the awakening process was starting. Prior to the transcendent phase, I had no context for awakening, had no idea that what I was experiencing was actually Kundalini, and probably didn't even realize it until 10 years after that it was actually Kundalini. I was having shaking episodes that this body was just spontaneously shaking as I would be trying to go to sleep, and it would actually shake the bed and be quite bothersome. And I had absolutely no idea what that was about. And at that time, I was going through a lot, and I was being prepared for the awakening that was about to begin. I'd read The Power of Now. I had heard about awakening at this point, but I really didn't understand it and didn't know anyone going through an awakening, and had no way to tie that shaking that I was experiencing and insomnia. There was just like this heightened amount of energy and shaking that was going on, had anything to do with spiritual awakening. I had no clue. I was quite mystical at that time. I would talk to spirits and spirit guides and that type of thing. And I think I just assumed that it was something mystical as far as they were spirits or that type of thing. And that's how I guessed what was happening. And so I wasn't so bothered by it. Lots of mystical, strange things had happened to me all throughout life, and this just was another one. And so now it was clear to me that Kundalini was starting, and I do feel like it's energetically trying to clear out the energy body. And we could call this the chakra system, or whatever you want to call it, but there does seem to be some type of energy body that we have, and the Kundalini energy seems to be what clears that out. How it all works exactly, I'm not sure anyone knows. There's theories, of course, but it does feel like there's energy stored in the base, around the base of the spine, and something wakes it up. It is activated, most likely through divine timing. And for many people, this can start their awakening process. It started through these bizarre Kundalini feelings of shaking and heat, and perhaps strong sexual energy because it's stored in that area, and all this energy is lighting up. And it seems to have its just own wisdom as it works its way up through the energy body and through the chakra systems, doing different things. And it seems to address some traumas, and things seem to be rattled up. And so it can be quite hectic for people, particularly if you have no idea what's going on, like I didn't. And so that was my first experience with Kundalini. And then, as far as I can recall, I don't think I had any other Kundalini experience until about 10 years later. And it was quite a different Kundalini experience. So by that stage, I had been seeking that whole time, and was probably now in the embodiment phase, in the early stages of the embodiment phase, had transferred out of transcending and was really deeply into healing. And it was activated on a trip in Bali. And I was there for a couple of months on a healing journey, and something activated it. Actually, I remember what it was. I did a Kundalini yoga class, and I'd never done one before. I just was trying out all different things that were available in Ubud where I was. That was one of the things that was there, and there was somewhat of a famous teacher in that world. And so I went to one of these classes and was doing all these weird, very fast moving things that was not any type of yoga I'd ever done before. And from after that, something was ignited again on an energetic level, and this time it was extreme heat inside. And so it was like I was burning from the inside out, and I could feel it and see my skin was red, and it was starting down the base, and it was moving up the body. And sometimes it's known as like the snake that's twirling up the body, and it does sort of feel like that. And the heat was coming from the body and up to there and stopped at my chin. And so all of this was bright red heat. It was so hot. And I did feel like I was on fire on the inside. And then there was again lots of trauma coming up, and it was pretty wild. It was pretty intense, certainly. But by that stage of awakening, I'd had lots of very strange things happen. This was just another one. I trusted it and just allowed it to be. And I do find that when people are dealing with Kundalini issues, the best they can do as far as what to do about it, even if it's very intense, is to ground yourself. Lots of grounding with your feet on the earth seem to really help. Being really healthy, drinking lots of water, healthy diet, being really balanced, just allowing the body to just to sort of support the process. So there's nothing you can really do about the Kundalini magic that is going on inside, but you can just allow the body to be healthy and be as grounded and try to sleep and do as much as you can, even though it causes all kinds of things like the shaking, the heat, trauma coming up, PTSD, insomnia, all kinds of strange things. Do your best to try to manage your overall well-being through it to help you get through it. And I find it just is something that takes its time. You try not to fixate on it, try not to make it mean anything. Just like, oh, that's Kundalini. Okay, no problem. And you just go about, perhaps don't do your spiritual practices, maybe if it's very intense, just put them on hold for a little while because we don't want to do anything that makes it worse. I would not be doing things like Kundalini yoga or the breath work or things that I did that bring it on or make it even worse. We don't want to really intensify it. We want to just leave it alone to do its own thing. That's my suggestion anyway. And then it seems to get to a point where it resolves itself, does its thing, and that part is complete. The energy body has been healed through this bizarre mystical thing that we call Kundalini energy, but it's just this weird process that happens on an energetic level that we really have nothing to do with. It just happens all on its own. And I find that this can happen for people at varying times, like it did for me through the process. It can happen prior to awakening starting, even prior to even the transcendent phase. It can be the thing that gets you interested in awakening. And that's pretty common entry point into awakening. And then it can happen at varying times through the awakening process, just spontaneously. The more you try to heal your trauma and work with someone on that level, if you do have a lot of trauma coming up, of course, that's going to help the process to be less intense. But there's not that much you can really do about it from what I can see. You just sort of have to ride it out and just trust it. It will end when it is meant to. It's doing its thing, and there's not really that much you can do about it. So, so that was it. My second time was in Bali, activated by Kundalini yoga. It was just heat and was there for maybe a few weeks. I was getting healings, all the traditional Balinese healings that they had. And I was trying to explain to them it was Kundalini energy I was dealing with. Not sure the healers believed me, but that's what it was. And another bizarre thing that was happening is all these snakes kept just coming out and it's like they were attracted to the energy, and symbolically Kundalini is the symbol of a snake, but snakes kept coming out, and it was a bizarre time, certainly. So I don't know if any of those healings worked to soothe it, or not, or it just took as long as it took. It's very hard to tell. But I just thought if I shared my direct experience about Kundalini, perhaps that will help you understand yours. So if you're getting weird symptoms like that, it could be nerve pain or shaking, things like that. Of course, we want to get things checked out medically with awakening. Of course, we need to be sensible. But a lot of the time, there is so many weird physical things that are happening, including Kundalini, that are quite unexplainable and no one really knows how it works and it is different from person to person and we just kind of accept it. Okay, that's just another weird part of awakening that I don't really need to be too concerned with. I can just let it do what it does.